Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
We're back with our guest today, Matt Geiger. He's the founder of VERITY Metals, converttogold.com. Matt, it's great to have you back on Patriot Radio.
Always good to be with you, Pastor Matt. Thanks for having me.
It's hard to keep up every week, but, Trump is doing a fantastic job smoking crooks out. Letitia James just came out, $200,000 mortgage fraud or something like that allegation. How are you evaluating that, first of all? And it would seem like there are more people involved than just her.
Well, I would quote Trump, and that is, be careful what you wish for. Right, which is what he told these people back in January of 2021. Look, they went after Trump for, they had to make up crimes. They valued Mar-a-Lago, just to put a felony on him, they valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. And just to give people some understanding, the property next to Mar-a-Lago, which is 2.5 acres, Mar-a-Lago is 17 acres with property built on, beautiful property. I've been there actually, I was back there in December. That property, the 2.5 acres that has nothing on it, right next door is valued at about $175 million. Okay, Mar-a-Lago being 7 times the size with a beautiful everything on it, they valued $18 million and then threw a felony on him. So my take on Letitia James is, they're just going to keep digging into these people. It's Letitia James, it's this Lisa Cook lady, it's Adam Schiff, right? I think what we're starting to see, if you just kind of extrapolate, is that all these congressional members, all these politicians, and all the people in the banking system, they're all committing this type of fraud. Everybody was doing it. They just never thought they would get caught.
So specifically, what kind of fraud is this? And it looks like a pattern that real estate has been used to cover maybe the shifting of large amounts of money to particular individuals.
Well, yeah, this I was actually listening to our friend Dr. Jerome Corsi last night on a different channel, and all the banks, he said every single bank out there is involved in money laundering and fraud, because these criminals, they have to get the money into the system, right? Effectively washing the money. So they put it through the 501c3s, the charities, blah, 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 right? And then it becomes legitimate money when it's sitting in, TD Bank or whatever. And then they can use it as payoffs, right? And then when it comes down to, mortgage applications and things of this nature, these people don't care. They're aligned with their buddies in politics. They're probably being groomed from this. Letitia James was probably groomed for her position for many, many years. And now it's catching up to them.
So they would use their properties, multiple properties, as a primary residence to get lower mortgage rates. Exactly. That's the allegation right now. Yeah.
And they have 3, and she's got 3 primary properties. Go figure.
Right. So in addition to that, I investigated this years ago. Somebody tipped me off to property being sold from like the state or the county, sold to an individual who happens to be, running a company that another politician is on the board and owns a stake in the property. And then years later, the property is sold back to the state or to the county at a huge profit. By the way, with needed environmental cleanup on said property, and that this is one of the ways that money is made, or money is allowed to be given to certain people, is using these vehicles, real estate, as really, just being blunt about it, really those are sources of enriching the elite. So how do we stop this across the board? Because like you said, it seems like a lot of people are doing it, even at the state and local level.
Well, I think the whole banking structure needs to change. Just the idea that these banks would even lend us money. We're borrowing from a central bank that's not even part of our country. It's a private corporation, essentially. And we're borrowing that money with interest. is the real scam, right? That's at the core of it. But it gets even more incestuous than what you talk about. I mean, people will go and they'll buy a $200,000 home and then take a $1.2 million loan off of it, and that loan is tax-free money that they can play around with.
Wow.
Right. So essentially, these people are operating. The whole banking system is. I heard from Dr. Corsi that every single bank is involved in money laundering and fraud, and this is probably one of the main areas that they're doing it in is in home loans, and the different variations of getting money from banks for homes. So how you crack down on it? I mean, I think you need to restructure the entire banking system and do something new, which is a great case for gold and silver, by the way. Get your money the hell out of these institutions.
Well, I mean, look at the gold and silver prices right now. My goodness, over $40. I remember when it was conspiracy theory that it would get over $40. Gold is now at records as well. Why is this happening? Matt Geiger, that's the softball question.
I mean, it's a number of reasons. One is that you have a lot of uncertainty. Uncertainty is really what drives the gold silver prices. Trade deals, debt accumulating, just all different factors such as that will, and also demand. I mean, there's a huge amount of demand for gold and silver. I think what it is that I've never been this busy in my entire career with people seeing even just the average Trump supporter who doesn't really understand necessarily what's going on behind the scenes and who these people really are. I think they're starting to realize that, hey, these banks are corrupt. I need to get my money out of, this Fidelity or Vanguard, these institutions that probably are completely insolvent, right? Because they're probably doing the same practices of the Letitia James of the world, that they're over-levered and completely illiquid. So I think it's demand. I think it has to do with uncertainty, and it has to do with a lot of the trade wars that are going on right now.
So are countries hoarding gold right now? And then if so, why do you think?
I mean, of course, the only problem is that you never really know what a country has, right? No country is going to tell you exactly their gold supply or anything like that. But yeah, countries are going to have to, because what are they realizing? They're realizing that this fiat system, we've been living in it our whole lives, is money backed by nothing that just gets printed off a machine endlessly. They're realizing that, wait a minute, this system's going to be coming to a close pretty soon, and they need to get into something stable, something that they can rebound in the new system with. So yeah, I think it speaks really from the transition to the central banking Federal Reserve system back to a sovereign treasury system with the backing of gold and silver.
If that happens, that would impact China and Russia, regardless of whether or not they're even part of the system. I think a lot of people miss that.
I think it would be very good for Russia and China. Russia did a massive gold buy when they were taking off the SWIFT system a number of years ago. You probably remember that. Russia was bringing in gold by the ton. Same thing with China. The only problem with China is that they've been caught with a lot of fake gold. There was actually a case where they were actually selling gold that was tungsten. The stuff that looks like gold, behaves like gold, weighs like gold, but isn't gold.
Wow. And the Chinese right now, I mean, Trump the other day saying the Chinese and the Russians were conspiring behind America's back along with the Indians. There seemed to have been something that happened. We'll get to that here in a second, but India, China, and Russia coming together as a bloc, that's not something that is small. Do you think that that's going to hold, or do you think it's just a pushback against what Trump is doing?
Well, I think what Trump's effectively done with this trade war, so to speak, is he's isolated China from a lot of their trade partners. I think he's got a better relationship with Modi than people realize. And it's in India's best interest. We could bring India out of the third world and bring them into the first world very, very quickly if they just have access to U.S. markets. Trump understands that at the end of this, it's really going to be about access to U.S. markets that's going to make your country wealthy. So I'm not really worried about China. I'm not really worried about Russia. As a matter of fact, and here's my tinfoil hat, I think if this has to all play out properly, I think China, meaning President Xi, Russia, President Putin, and the United States, President Trump, I think that the three of them are working together on some level behind the scenes.
It would seem like something has shifted pretty dramatically. Do you think that there is a shot now at peace between Russia and Ukraine, or do you think this is going to continue into World War III?
I think it'll continue for a little bit. My fear, I think there's going to be some big event, a massive, 9/11 style event that's going to effectively just turn, even if you're pro-Ukraine or whatever the case is, I think it's going to turn the world off, and there's going to be some type of, Cuban Missile Crisis style event that eventually is going to turn the population against their governments and the people that are really engineering this war. So yeah, I do think eventually there will be peace. You're seeing peace everywhere else. I mean, he's making deals with everybody. I think everybody just wants to get past this. The way we lived in the 20th century. I mean, if you really look at the 20th century, it was a total failure, right? It was nothing but war and death. I mean, if you compare that to other centuries, the 20th century was a complete loss of life, a total failure for humanity. And I think we need to turn that around. And I think leaders understand that, God willing.
Yeah, and in India coming to the realization that they need the United States more than the United States needs India. I mean, those are plain economic realities. But there is a thread of Indian nationalism right now that could drive a wedge between certain countries around India and maybe even the United States. How does Trump ensure via deal that India actually remains at peace and remains at least an ally at some level of the United States?
I think it's actually a great case for why there really probably has to be a crash of the financial system, where this whole fiat system that we live in with central banks, there does have to be some type of collapse. And if you want to get out of that collapse, you're going to turn to the United States and you're going to sit at the table with Trump, and he's going to make a good deal for you too, right? He's not going to just sit there and expect to stomp all over you. I think what Trump wants, I think he wants prosperity in a place like India. I mean, I was watching a video of India the other day. It's nothing but trash in the water, right? You've seen the videos, yeah. Trash and human, junk in the water. It's disgusting. India really would benefit from going to the table, sitting down with Trump, and making a deal that Trump wants to make, because I bet you it's going to benefit Indian citizens better than anything they've ever gotten in their entire lives.
When we come back from the break, more with Matt Geiger, converttogold.com, and we're going to be talking about Trump's missing week and maybe what he discussed and why there's been a huge shift in foreign policy.
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we're back with Matt Geiger, converttogold.com, talking about everything that has been going on in the last couple of weeks. But most interestingly and mysteriously, President Trump disappeared for a week. All of a sudden, he comes out. There's been a huge shift away from China and to the Western Hemisphere, a deployment right off the coast of Venezuela, a strike of a narco-terrorist boat, and some rhetoric that seems to be very clearly aimed at South America and Central America. Matt, how are you analyzing that?
I mean, my guess is probably Trump stepped out, went around the world, went into meetings in person with some of these other world leaders. Who they are, who knows? Maybe, for all we know, maybe he met with Maduro, right? Who knows? We really don't know. But yeah, I found it very interesting that the mainstream media turned around and they're calling him dead. It's projection, it's wishful thinking, right? Probably when Trump travels, there's probably a lot of risk to his life as he does stuff like that. So, it's probably a direct threat at Trump, because we know that they've tried to kill him many times before, stuff that people haven't even heard in the news media, that I've heard about and even have seen. But yeah, I think it's great that we're sending warships down to South America. I think my guess is there's boots on the Delta Force, special forces are on the ground right now in places like Guadalajara, Sinaloa, right? Different areas like that are embedded with the cartels. I bet you we're already at war with those guys. That would be my guess.
Yeah, no question. There's already been drone recon going over Mexico, and I would suspect Venezuela as well. There's most certainly boots on the ground somewhere down there in Central and South America, with the connections that have been built over the last few decades in the anti-communist fight. But here's where I want to go with this. The shift away from China. What does Trump know that we don't? For a decade, the United States military had put China as the primary threat, was deploying assets into the Pacific, had just redone the airbase there. Our economic policy had always been shifted at isolating China. That's a dramatic shift to now say that the Western Hemisphere is the priority.
No doubt. I mean, I think the whole key here is to isolate China. It's like what I said before. He's really pulled away their trading partners. China's really, they're isolated. They really have nowhere to go. Their economy's failing. Their currency's failing. what are they going to do? It's like what we just discussed about with India. China's going to have to come to the table and make a deal, and that's going to come with stipulations that you're not going to, run your country in as a communist hellhole. There's going to be 1776 worldwide, and I think that's how Trump can influence the same movement that we've had here for the last 8 to 10 years. I think that's how he can influence it around the world and make all these countries great again.
I mean, Treasury Secretary Bessent overtly, publicly saying that they want to crash the Russian economy. Then privately, you have all of the comments about crashing the Chinese economy. You think that's really the aim, or are these just negotiating positions to bring them to the table?
I would think negotiation positions. I don't see any benefit to crashing Russia's economy or crashing China's economy. I mean, that's essentially what Reagan did in whatever year, 1989 or 1990, getting the USSR, the communist Russians, to surrender. Was he effectively devalued the ruble? So it's probably a very similar strategy that they're going to use, and just bring them to their knees, bring them to the table. And next thing you knew, Gorbachev tear down that wall, and they tore down that wall. So I think Trump's taking a play out of Reagan's book.
Right. And so as Americans looking at this, that there is going to be downturns in different world economies, probably in the United States economy to some extent. The Fed clearly going to cut rates this month. The question is by how much? How do people position themselves to weather the storm?
Well, rate cuts traditionally are great for gold. They're great for silver. I mean, generally speaking, it's like, if you're not getting a nice interest rate in your checking or your savings account or your CD or your money market, maybe you're getting 0.5% or 1% by the time this is all said and done. You're going to want to put your money somewhere else. I mean, just imagine you had your money the last 2 years in gold or the last 2 years in silver. You would have effectively doubled your money. That's a 100% rate of return over 2 years. And gold and silver are not stopping. I mean, we haven't seen anything yet in terms of the financial meltdown, the banks, right? What's really going on with the insolvency within the banks? I mean, I expect gold to hit well over $10,000 probably within the next year. Really, wow. Realistically. Silver is going to probably surpass 50 very, very quickly. We could probably see that by next month. I mean, I think, what the rate cut's going to do is it's going to force people into assets. And I think one of the best assets you can get are just the fundamental money, right? Just stuff in your hand. So it's like if you have an IRA or 401k, I'll put your gold and silver in your hand. You can go store it wherever you want, right? I'm the only guy in the industry that does that. So in other words, your IRA, instead of having to go to some random depository, which there's nothing wrong with them, but I can also take that gold and silver, ship it to you. And for example, I know from doing business with some of your viewers, Pastor Matt, up in Spokane, I know of several facilities where you can go and store that stuff locally, have access to it on a moment's notice. That's not the case all around the country. I just say it because I know Spokane in that sense. But I mean, I think it's a great time to shift your money out of something that's depreciating into something that is actually appreciating.
We've had discussions before about the silver market in particular being manipulated heavily. How come that manipulation isn't working, or is the manipulation toward higher silver prices?
Well, what it is these banks have held short positions for years. Really, they inserted their short. The major shorts were inserted in 2011 when silver ran up to almost $50. Right, they inserted the short, and then boom, it came way back down to the low teens. Right, and the banks made a fortune doing this, and they've had to suppress the price of silver ever since. But the problem is that they're doing this with paper ounces. So if they want to maintain these positions, they're going to have to throw their physical at it in order for these positions to remain. They're running out of the physical. They're not going to be able to play this game forever. So every time you see that uptick in silver price, just realize Bank of America loses something like $1 billion for every $1 that silver goes up. So this is the price of silver, because of all the shorts between Citibank, JP Morgan, Bank of America. Silver is almost like the bank killer. Those are like the three major banks here in the United States. The higher silver goes, just realize the more insolvent and the more unstable these banks become. So it's almost like if you own silver, you're almost taking pleasure in taking down these big institutions that have been screwing us our entire lives.
Well, let's talk a little bit about ratios. Thomas Jefferson brought up ratios. Many people don't know that he was originally part of our monetary structuring in the United States of America with gold and silver. But he always thought that gold should have a ratio to silver, or silver should have a ratio to gold. What should that ratio be? So if gold goes to $10,000, What should silver actually be valued at? Perfect world.
I would think it should be 1 to 4, right? But we really don't know. See, here's the problem, is that it could be, and this is just speculation, but silver could actually be more rare overall than even gold is. There's a lot of gold out there. I'm not knocking gold. I don't think gold, even if they found, massive deposits of gold, which they have in certain countries in the last couple of years, I don't think it would have such a great impact necessarily on the price of gold. I think if gold were fairly priced right now, with all the debt, with all the derivatives, right, with everything being upside down, gold would be $150,000 an ounce, right? It's never going to be that. But if all things were fair, it probably would be. Silver, however, silver is probably rarer than gold, and I think it's probably one of the hidden gems in terms of just overall investing. I think silver, by far, is probably the greatest asset to hold, better than any cryptocurrency, better than any stock position, better than any currency. It is the place to be is silver.
Next 60 days, Matt Geiger, what do you see happening?
$47 silver, $3,800 gold, $1,700 platinum.
Wow. And in the U.S. economic system, what do you see happening?
I think we're going to see a lot of arrests. Therefore, I think you're going to start to see a lot of these banks exposed. It'll be interesting to see how things finish up by the end of the year. You might see some more bank failures, some guys pulling the plug, trying to get out ahead of the curve. Probably a lot of problems. I would be watching out for the Japanese economy. The Japanese economy is really the thing to be looking out for. From what I understand, the FDIC is required to bail out the Japanese economy before they even bail out us. So most likely by the time they bail out the Japanese, we're not even going to have an FDIC when our banks fail. So I would actually be looking at Japan. I would be looking at South America to Brazil, which is the second largest population of Japanese people on earth. I would be looking in those two places and see what's going on there on the economic front.
So what is the indicator people should be looking for? Not just the stock markets of those places, but if they're canaries in the coal mine, what should they be looking for?
I would be looking at the yen. I'd see what the yen's doing, the Japanese yen. And that's about it. And markets.
Watch the values. Watch the values of the yen. Fantastic conversation as always, Matt Geiger. Thank you so much for everything you do, and keep up the fight.
Thank you. God bless.
Matt Geiger, converttogold.com. Check it out. And again, we have been talking about this ad nauseum every week, and the markers are hitting. Gold over 40. Or not gold, silver over 40. Gold at record prices. The indicators from the Treasury Secretary and President Trump regarding downturns in economies across the world, but potentially some rate cuts here in the United States of America, and maybe some turbulent times here in the next 6 months in the United States. So you've been warned. So what can you do? Pray about how you are going to weather this storm. You've heard a lot of solutions, potential solutions today. Pray about what you should be doing with your friends and with your family. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. And He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. Keep up the fight.